Ooh. Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in to Live from Cleveland at Home. We are very excited today to bring you Lisa Bella Donna. Lisa, hello.
Hi, everybody. How you doing?
It is so nice to talk to you in person. And
Oh,
we
thank
are,
you. Thanks for having me.
yeah. And you are coming to us from your home, your recordings studio there.
Yes.
And I heard that recently you made, not maybe like semi recently, you made a move kind of out further into the country and not in the heart of Columbus anymore.
No, we're in the Appalachian Mountains. So we're in a really real beautiful area, kind of next to a natural reserve, I guess, natural park.
And is
So
that actually, is that still in Ohio, like down near like Athens, or are you back in West Virginia?
it's in the Appalachian Mountains.
Do they go through? Okay, that's where we're good. That's where we're getting with. That's good. That's good. And so that's pretty interesting to be like so within nature and then still have all of this technology with you. Like I love that kind of duality of the music that you make.
Yeah, it's a full circle for me. When I got into doing electronic and electroacoustic music, I was living in West Virginia specifically at that time, and it definitely had a great impact on how I developed my ideas and what some of my musical intentions were. And here, it's very much a full circle, but much more peaceful and uh, much more of a situation under my control. And I'm very grateful for this chapter.
You've been making music for decades, and it just blows my mind the amount of knowledge that you have amassed specifically with Moog machinery, with synthesizers. Tell me a little bit about how you got started making music with synthesizers specifically, because it's such like a niche thing, I feel like.
Yeah, I listened to some electronic music when I was young, and it really had a huge impact on me. But I didn't have the opportunity to really get to use synthesizers. And then when I was a teenager, I started working as a musician, teaching and playing gigs, and then I eventually got lucky and landed a job in a jingle studio. It was a very small studio, but they had a lot of great state of the art equipment at the time, and this would have been in the mid late 80s. And at the time, digital was coming on strong, analog was still the main format. But in terms of the synthesizers and sequencers they used, they had went all FM, digital, and sample based. But in the back of the studio, they had some dusty old Fender Rhodes and an ARP Odyssey. And I got those out after a session one time and just started to explore it. And I was like, that's it. That's what I've been after. Something with that kind of touch response and immediacy of creation, being able to just start with one sound and end up with another at the end of a experience with it. And, they were a little, they kind of would heckle me about it because at the time those weren't in vogue at all, analog synthesizers. And so they made me a little spot in the back of the studio building. There was a little storage room in there with a little window, and they let me set up those pieces of gear. And then I started acquiring my own and started to experiment with all analog synthesizers at the end of the 80s, and so I became pretty much addicted to it then, and just continued to learn about it and expand my knowledge and techniques, and of course expand my collection of them, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And so I know today you are a clinician. You teach clinics on how to use different synthesizers and different instruments at places all over the United States and beyond. You've taught at Berkeley, which is amazing. And one of the first schools I think that like really incorporated synthesizers into their music curriculum. And so I'm just kind of wondering, did you ever have any formal training with synthesizers, or was it just working with them for so long and being around them kind of at the ground level that how you got the experience that you did?
It's all ground level. I didn't have there wasn't anything available in the universities where I came up that you could experience synthesis. And like I said, at that time, had there been, I'm sure that probably wouldn't have been included. Sure, it would have been more programming based or even software based at that time. Like there were some synthesizers out that had more software style ways of working and things. But no, I just fortunately ran into a lot of people that were knowledgeable and I would learn from them. I worked for another gentleman who was a studio owner, and he was where I bought my own first ARP synthesizer, and he had a great knowledge and really great knowledge of synthesis and MIDI and sound design and scoring, and so I worked with him for a period of time and developed a lot of skills from him. But a lot of it was just, reading as much as I could and spending as much time with them as I could.
That it always blows my mind because I struggle sometimes with technology. And so just being that self-taught is just amazing.
It's a labor of love.
It is, yeah. I wanted to ask about projects that you've gotten to work on with Moog. I know that there have been some albums that have been created with, using solely their synthesizers and consoles. Tell me a little bit about some of the fun things that you've gotten to collaborate with them in the past few years.
Absolutely. It's really a great privilege and pleasure to work with Moog synthesizers. Not just because of the heritage and the history and everything that goes with it, because they are the first name in keyboard controlled synthesizers. That's one thing. But what they're doing now and the kinds of people that I get to work with Moog is really just a great, inspiring experience, because they're so just very clear and very focused about their goals and about what inspires them and what they wish to aspire. They're very humble, very motivated people. And so it's just a great circulation. So, we've done quite a few videos at this point that, are out there on YouTube, on the Moog Synthesizers YouTube page and their web page. But we also do a lot of things behind the scenes. I write a lot of patch books for their modern modular equipment. And they have a very massive, expensive workstation, if you will, 16-voice analog synthesizer called a Moog 1. And I do a lot of patches for that. A lot of the multi-timbral patches I compose and do for that machine. And I also do a lot of education for that machine. So a lot of things like that, a lot of beta testing, a lot of working with them in terms of things that are up and coming, and just trying to be a great soundboard and support for their projects, because they're doing it right as far as I'm concerned. And in my studio, it is primarily Moog synthesizers because it's the sound and it gets the job done. And the system that I have now, because of the kinds of ways that the hybrids that they're making, these sort of all analog signal path, yet there is some digital control and possibility. I mean, it's the stuff that I've dreamed of 30 years ago, and now it's here. So I'm very grateful to get to be included in it. You bet.
I was going to say, it sounds kind of like how you're like perpetually the kid on Christmas that is helping to shape how these, machines come out, and the things that you wanted to see designed back then are finally coming around. So I just love that. That's really amazing.
Thank you.
You had an album come out called The World She Wanted. And this album has already sold out, which is in 48 hours, you were able to move all vinyl for it. And this was released earlier this year on March 15th. And tell us a little bit about the making of this album in particular.
Well, The World She Wanted was an album I actually recorded in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
And it was actually an album of really very personal compositions. Not that my other work isn't personal, but this was a little bit more directly personal. There's very much thusly spoken. And I had no intentions of releasing it. They were just compositions that I had created and decided to make an album with it that sort of expressed where my life was at the time. And the fact that I did get to move back out to the country in a safe and sane environment with my family and getting to, just getting to do what I do for a living is a huge privilege, period. And I don't care how hard you work for it, because I've been doing it for years. Finally finding that sort of balance of what I'm doing it's just been a really great blessing. And so that's what that album is really about. Of course, it steps outside of just all synthesized music. For years, have been a professional guitarist and fingerstyle guitarist. So I wanted to kind of get into that, that feeling and that vibe and combine the two together, which I've always loved the sound of acoustic guitars and acoustic instruments with synthesizers. So yeah,
it sounds lovely, and we're going to listen to the song "Two Spirit, One Life." Can you tell me a little bit about what this song means to you? And you do play all of the instrumentation on it. Can you also let people know a little bit about what they're hearing when they're listening?
Sure, absolutely. Now, Two Spirit, One Life is just about who I am as a human, and I feel that this is true for a lot of us in our journeys in life. We have these very public sides of ourselves and these very more personal, private sides to ourselves, and trying to find a way to balance that honesty in our everyday life is something that I feel is just, some of our life's great work. And I feel that I've finally been able to do that in the last decade. And so that's what that song's about. The instrumentation are a couple acoustic guitars, an upright bass, and some vintage Moog and ARP synthesizers, some chimes, and a little bit of mellotron in the bridge. So, but I wanted to do something that was, not necessarily a 20-minute odyssey, but something very direct and very, very melodic, and just sort of, like I said, where I come from. I'm born in Cleveland, but I grew up in West Virginia, and there's a big part of me that, I developed a lot of great spirit from growing up in that part of the world.
Beautiful. All right. Well, we are going to listen to Two Spirit, One Life right now here on Live from Cleveland at Home. You can find Lisa Bella Donna's entire catalog from the last few years on her Bandcamp, lisabelladonna.bandcamp.com. And that's where we are going to hear this next song from. All right. Thank you, everyone. We just heard from the album The World She Wanted, Two Spirit, One Life. And it is such a really beautiful sonic trip that you take us on with that song. And I've read interviews that you've done in the past where you've kind of said that it's hindered you a bit that you never chose like a genre to be a part of. But I don't think so. And honestly, it's been able to open me up to your music. I was able to see you play in Cleveland with I for the first time. And that was a little more of a psych metal kind of band, rock band. So tell me a little bit about transitioning. Did you always do solo work, or did you start out kind of being in more structured bands and then move towards solo work?
I always did solo work all throughout. Ever since I started basically learning instruments, I started to compose. And even when I had bands for many years, I was pretty aggressive about my vision and arrangements and all that, because I would come to the table with everything worked out. And then I eventually started to be more interested in things like jazz music and jazz oriented music, and combining different people's ideas and things like that. So even though I've always been a solo composer and musician, recording artist, I've always worked in bands, because I think it's important to a point to it's about different kinds of frequency and different kinds of circulation with people and your different audiences. And being in bands gave me that opportunity to travel the world and to experience different demographics and different scenes, and and just try to find a way to make a home in each of those, over the years.
One of the other things that you've talked about being extremely inspired by our movie scores, especially horror movie scores. And I just I'm wondering if you have had the chance to score any movies yourself.
No, I never have. I've had offers to do stuff, but I can't offer my time for free anymore. So, but no big leagues have called, and I don't live in LA, so that's probably not likely to happen at this point. But if I ever decided to up and move to Los Angeles, there's a possibility that I'll still be alive by the time I would get the opportunity to do that. And I know people that are in the business that are doing a lot of scoring and Netflix scoring and things, and it's of interest at some point, but at the same time, right now I'm very liberated with what I want to do artistically. And that's kind of more important to me than anything, because that's where I'm going to offer my best work. And there is so many rules now with music that there didn't really used to be. If you're going to be in the world of film scoring, or if you're going to be someone that's going to have a song on the charts, or have, really high Spotify numbers, then you have to play by certain rules and do certain styles and have specific sounds in your music. And I'm just not that. I just don't like to follow the rules that much. I'd rather do what I want to do and do it well than that. But if the right opportunity came along, I'm sure I could provide a great score for, a horror film or a great drama. There's a lot of films that I, feel I would love to score that, or even things. This might not seem as exciting, but I'm a huge fan of like BBC Earth and National Geographic and things like that. And, it'd be fantastic to score something like that, because you wouldn't have to always, like I said, you wouldn't have to just follow the state-of-the-art head. You could just make great, powerful sounding music, and it would fly.
For sure.
That's all I'm really after.
Has that also kind of influenced your choice of labels as well? I see you working with a lot of different people in a lot of different countries to put out the music that you have. And is that kind of a reflection of that feeling that you don't necessarily want to be tied down to any certain genre or any certain expectations for your music?
No, just no one's really hit me up, and there's been a few occasions that labels have hit me up, but they don't typically ever amount to anything.
Mm-hmm.
Or they'll offer me something that, I'm just not interested in it.
Mm-hmm.
I've already been through enough of the rock and roll world and things like that to know what I don't want to do with contracts and with my rights. And I'm just not interested in a lot
Mm-hmm.
of it. It's very rare somebody comes through that like makes any sense. So, and when Behind the Sky called, he made perfect sense because he's somebody who is also an artist, a very passionate artist in his own right, and very successful. He's Grammy nominated. So
Mm-hmm.
he's no stranger to making it work. And has a lot of releases under his belt with other artists and himself and collaborations. And, he's one of those people that has paid his dues and has a lot of things to show for it. I don't make music that a lot of major labels or, they're not going to have any interest in it. My songs are way too long. There's not enough beats. I
Sure.
get the complaint list all the time. And,
Oh, yeah.
it's not my interest. It'd be
Mm-hmm.
different if that was my goal. And at this point, it doesn't matter to me whether the albums come out or not. The
Mm-hmm.
bottom line is that I'm making them, and they're making them to be as quality as possible.
Yeah, and you have been making them. There has been several different projects that you've been working on within the last 2 years, if not 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
All of that is kind of available on Bandcamp to listen to and watch and to purchase if people are interested. But one of the other projects that you also worked on was this Turning Point live performance. So tell us a little bit about that, because I love that there is a performance that was available online for people to watch. We're going to let our listeners watch that in just a minute after we hear a little bit more about it.
Sure. Well, initially it was I received a call from Sisters from Transistors
Mm-hmm.
in Metrograph Films, and they asked me if I would be willing to do a post-premiere release concert for the film. And absolutely. And then I saw the film. Like, I saw the film after I had done everything, and it brought me to tears because it hit so close to home. Basically my electronic music, the first 20 years of it was private because, there was no format. There was no place to go and make music, especially as a woman. It's not going to happen. You didn't hear about it, And so it's a great time that, these sort of documents are out there, and to change the future and to change the possibility of the next generations and the people who become inspired by this, not only just an art form, but a process and a development of technology and music technology and musical awareness and sonic awareness. So I was honored to be asked to be included. And so my partner, Tristan Weary, and I, he's a photographer, and we made it happen very quickly. So I had already been working on these compositions and was getting close to the point of getting ready to record them. And so when the call came and we only had basically 2 days to put it together. So, I tightened up my compositions and programmed this basically room full of synthesizers to perform it live, and just set up a 16-channel session, and we did it. And then we edited it the next day and sent it in. So that's what you're seeing is, most of those, I think everything's first takes except for the second piece. We did a couple of different runs of it just because it's a lot of moving around.
And yeah, a much longer piece. So we are going to listen to the first and second pieces in Turning Points, and this is also available to watch online as well if people are interested. So you can watch the entire run of this performance, which is about 37 minutes long, I believe, online. But we are going to listen right now to and watch the first 20 minutes of it. So whenever you are ready, hit it, Isaac.
Yep, that's it.
Perfect. All right. Well, that was so cool to be able to see what you actually use all those instruments for behind you, to see them in action. And I'm watching the footage and I'm thinking, oh wow, that's right there.
Yep.
Yeah, I shouldn't be so shocked. You had disclaimed this before we started, but it's cool, definitely cool to get a little sense of where the magic happens and kind of having it kind of stagnant behind you, and then being able to put it all together and see it in action was really cool. Do you think that you've been able to do some more and intense sort of performances this year, being able to film in advance and broadcast them from your own studio versus having to be somewhere live in person?
Yes and no.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest, it's really hard for me to do videos, period.
Sure.
It's just, it's uncomfortable unless it's like the right, it's the right group of people. Not that I don't enjoy working with my partner. He's great and talented and technically proficient, but we're around each other all the time, and it's just a different dynamic. It's when I'm working with the people at Moog, for instance, it's a whole other dynamic, and it's easy to you almost feel like you're, I don't want to say in a band, but kind of, you're feeding off of each other's ideas, and you're thinking about certain shots or certain angles or certain intentions that I could turn into music. And because a lot of my compositions when I go there are very instant, they're instantaneous. I don't really plan a lot when I go down. I want to go down and get a feel from some conversation and see where we want to go, and not get in the way of that. So on my own, it's really difficult for me to be in front of a camera. It's not how I feel about making electronic music, but I know that it's important, and that a lot of the people that support my music are always very thrilled when I do. So we're trying to do more, and I'm going to try to do a little bit more educational stuff, and we'll see how it goes. We have been acquiring more equipment to do this properly and in 4K and things like that. So there'll be more videos this year than any other year, for sure.
Yeah, you bring up a really good point that I honestly didn't think too much about before I asked the question, which is that whole self-reflexive nature of catching yourself on video, having to watch it back, making sure I can be a perfectionist. I can only imagine a musician in that case as well. We all to an extent are. So I definitely think that I would have very similar feelings about watching and getting everything down to how I wanted it in order to put it out there. Whereas performing live, It's much more improvisational almost.
Well, there's circulation. Here's the difference for me. Even doing this Turning Point project, it was different because I wasn't thinking about, okay, we're just doing a video. Great. There was a goal. There was this feeling of there's just an end goal, and I knew that who I was doing this for. And so that gave me this different, it got me out of the way of it, and I just became filled with inspiration and focus to work, just to do videos on my own. I'm a recording artist, that's what I do best. And I'm a great performer when it is the intention of the end result. When I see the reel-to-reels moving and I know I'm in record mode, I go into that space very naturally. And, with cameras and with doing this kind of music, it's not really a great visual music unless there's lights and there's things to help guide the listener through it. It's kind of a desk job, in one way. and when I'm playing, solo synthesizer, or I'm in a trying to do things that require intensity, and then it's not always pretty, and so then I have to deal with that, because it's very demanding to be able to get between the lines of the rules that people socially put on watching videos. A woman can't make an ugly face while they're playing. That's people aren't used to that still. Unless it's there, unless you're there, you're doing it on purpose, and that's the act, man. And that's not really. I would rather play live with a bunch of lights and smoke, and you could barely see me. That's when I feel at best.
It's always been very dark when I've seen you play up here in Cleveland, that's as long as you can see what you're doing, that's how I like it too. But I think that you and your partner have done a really wonderful job of shooting it in a way that is very visually interesting. And, you're not only impressed by you playing, but also by the machines kind of doing what they do, and being inspired by them. But I feel you, being a radio face. I don't think people are still used to seeing me making all my ugly faces over here. So they gotta put up with us, okay?
They do. Because sometimes music's not a performance. Music is a reaction to the cathode, and that's part of the muse, and what comes out. And my music is there's a lot of improvisation in my music. Some of my music's entirely improvised. And so in order to do that, you have to sort of really carefully ride the waves of what you're doing without it becoming too redundant, or without, trying to find those sweet spots where that you're not losing the listener, and so on and so forth. Or you don't care at all, and you just want to inflict upon them. And I tried to do a little bit of that in the Turning Point video. The first two pieces they're there for you, the audience, and I hope that people enjoy them. And the last piece, that's where I'm coming from, and you can take it or leave it. And it's a great feeling to go in and have that kind of control and confidence. And if it works, great. If not, great. But it's done, and it came through, and we did it. That's like any live performance, even solo or with ensemble.
The entire video is available to watch on YouTube. And you have a couple other, usually it's my cat that makes the appearances. I don't know where mine went, but you have a very cute kitty that you call Miniature Kitty. We've been talking about behind the scenes for much of the show. Was this a found kitty, or did you go adopt the kitty? Where did Miniature Kitty come from? Adopted him. Very cute. Very cute. Oops. Did we lose Lisa? Oh, nope, you're right there. Here we go. I got you back. I just wanted to reiterate too that the last song in the Turning Points project is available online. Is that on your YouTube channel or another YouTube channel?
Yeah, that's on mine.
And you can also view this video at your website, lisabelladonna.com as well. And you also did another virtual performance for the Nelsonville Music Festival this year as well.
I did.
And is that whole performance is also available online?
Yeah, I think enough of it.
Okay, all right.
I think it was a lot longer. But I think that what they have on there is a good cut of it. It was so hot that day.
Oh
my
gosh.
God, it was like 98 degrees that day.
Did you do it from home, or did you go to them to record it?
I went to them.
Okay. Oh no, and it was 98 degrees there.
Oh man. I'm sure that I was a bitch. It was really hot, and I had did this beautiful makeup job, and I had this kimono on, so I'd stay cool and all this. Because I assumed there would be like maybe a stage set up with a PA, and they could just run people in and out. Yeah. I didn't really know, but when we got there, they're like, "Oh, okay, walk all your gear down this hill, and then just set up on the ground." And I wasn't really happy about that. Mm-hmm. I was like, okay, I've got like, $20,000 worth of gear with me here, and it's 98 degrees outside today. It was a challenge.
It sounds like you got the festival experience, and no one sitting at home watching this got the festival experience.
I mean, as far as they did a really awesome job.
Yeah.
I thought they did an awesome job with the drone footage, and that was really cool. And I thought it turned out just fine. And I kind of liked, once I saw it back, I kind of liked the fact that I had on a hat and a mask and sunglasses. And it's like, yeah, that's even better, So in a way, I'm happy with it, But at the time, it was a chore just to even it was just, I was dripping with sweat, and it was really uncomfortable. And I'm like lopsided on this hill, and I'm like sitting in this chair. It's too low, and
it wasn't the best moment, but it sounds like you made it through, and it was for a very nice production that they do each year. And so all of your music can be found online. Remind people one more time where they can follow you on Instagram as well to get more updates about what you have coming up.
Yeah, Instagram is the best place to follow me for stuff I got going on. My website is recently updated. I'm going to try to do better about keeping that updated. But my Bandcamp, there's also a community board on my Bandcamp, Lisa Bella Donna at Bandcamp, or lisabelladonna.com. And my Instagram is just my name, Lisa Bella Donna. Yeah, you're trying to start trouble. Back there. You got my attention. And at YouTube with / Lisa Bella Donna. So we got more stuff coming. We're working on some more videos. And there's more stuff coming with Moog, and I'm very grateful. I'm depending on how things go with COVID, I'm going to do a concert one night and a master class the next day at Synthplex, and I'm hopeful that we can make that happen. That'd be great. I'm excited to get out and do more performances. At the end of this month, on the 27th, I'll get to do my first jazz fusion gig in almost 2 years. So I'll be playing at Natalie's Coal-Fired Pizza in Worthington, Columbus, Ohio, with Stan Smith Group, who is a longtime colleague of mine. And that's going to be a great band, and an amazing array of Stan Smith's brilliant music. So that's on the 27th. Tickets are almost sold out. So anybody that is watching this and is interested in catching a show this month will be at Natalie's Coal-Fired on the 27th.
So cool. Well, thank you, Lisa, so much. We do have time to listen to one more song for those of you that are joining us on our live stream. And that song, I don't want to butcher the name, so I'm gonna let Lisa, you explain what this title means. You said it was the mothership, but I want you to say it. You said it much better than I did. It's on an album that you have out called Odyssey, and that is the one that you can listen to on your Bandcamp as well. So tell us a little bit about this one.
Yeah, La Nodriza. It's this just means the mothership. The album Odyssey is an album of live in studio performances. Actually, the last track is live in performance, and it is an album I did with an Argentinian label called Live Acts, and they're an amazing group of people. they are connected with a great community there in Argentina, with education, with festivals and shows, and they just have a very deep spirit for this music. And of course, we have been communicating for about a year, and I did an EP with them called Impressions prior to that. And so we did this project I called it Odyssey, and we did a CD pressing, and it did very well, and it brought a lot of inspiration to people in Argentina, and a lot of universities were using it in their classes. And so, and of course, COVID's made it tough because, I could definitely potentially go there and do some teaching and do some concerts. And so, hoping to get to do that next year.
It will not become any less important, and it is a really beautiful album. So I'm excited to take us out with this tonight. And I just want to thank you so much. Thank you for joining us. This is a bucket list of performance of mine that I'm happy we got to do because of the situation, the COVID that we're kind of in now. We get to do a lot more of this. So very, very happy. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rachel. Appreciate you guys for having me on.
Anytime.
My heart's in Cleveland, so love you guys.
Thank you so much. This is the last track we're going to hear by Lisa Bella Donna. Thanks for tuning in tonight on Live from Cleveland at Home.